Miss Shirley, where of matter, and it says here moon, hour, and day, but it's night. So I don't know the where or which planet rules the night in Monday, where it's here Monday. Anyway, the ascendant is in 2 degrees Capricorn. Its ruler Saturn is in 6 degrees Pisces, trine in the moon. So the moon is separating from a trine. The moon is in 7 degrees Cancer in the seventh house, whole sign speaking, at the moment of, but also Placidus speaking at the moment of the beginning of this broadcast. And we have a sextile here of the moon and Saturn with Jupiter, and to a lesser degree, Rahu. Um, Mars is in Leo, opposing Pluto in Capricorn, in Aquarius. Mercury still in Taurus in its shade period, I believe. Still, Sun in 1 degree Chiron. And the topic of this discussion has to do um, with something I noticed through marketing. Currently, it's a fourth house perfection with the ruler in the second being Mercury, and I've accentuated it with a sphere and sundry talisman for Mercury. So, extra marketing, okay? Insights. And as I'm looking at marketing, and by the way, the sun is on my Chiron, so even though Chiron is in my fourth house, it is Mercury ruled Chiron, and that also pertains to marketing. So I've noticed several incidents today. I'll begin with the latter actually. And one of them was an advertisement that says, do not sell a product, solve a problem. And I was thinking about how this advice seems very logical and how incompatible it is with certain types of services. So, being a holistic health practitioner, um, it's actually not promising that I can solve your problem that makes me professional. Because if you come to me, um, my premises and what differs holistic health from any other type, both shamanistic and spiritual, and conventional, and kind of trained in the right places. So the big difference is that when you come to me, I come with the premise that it doesn't matter how long I learned, with what doctors or professors I learned, how well experienced they were, how many years they spent being a monk, how many drugs they took, psychedelics they took, or how are they well treated. And this is, of course, the paraphrase of Feynman that I love to do. If it doesn't work for you, it is not good for you. Okay, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter how well educated I am. All I know is dogmas. Only person who can tell me if my dogma, be it astrology, psychology, and sociology, physics, because I do apply all these, um, body, mind, chakras, whatnot, crystals, oils, the only person that tells me if my dogma, if my paradigm applies to you and how is you. And for a myriad of reasons that I'm not going to get into those. And so I was running into this notion of don't sell a product, solve a problem. And I see how this actually good piece of advice that tries to connect between people and other people kind of fail to provide. And And to give a concrete example, I'm going to give another thing that I saw in my mailbox today, by someone that I actually very appreciate, and it's not like it's not about, it doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter what, um, because it's not putting the person on the spot. It could have happened to any of us who's trying to get out of our own box and be able to be taught. And so when you're running a business, you try to do it yourself, and then you try to see if somebody can help you, and then you go by the book, by what they say, and you open your mind to new possibilities. So I absolutely do not shame anybody that tries to make a life while making a living, and actually deliver their goods to the world, with a trial and error. Uh, what I saw was actually a person who's doing sexual education and sexual therapy of sexual related issues, whether having no orgasm, people who are virgins and want to have, like, introduction to sexuality. It's no touch therapy, as much as I know. Like, I don't think they touch people's bodies. And what the what they were basically taught was to do a certain marketing, that they market groups of meetings. So you buy a series of meetings, and then it was in three categories. One was for people who are like never had sexual experience. The other one is for people who had sexual trauma, and another one for people who had multiple sexual traumas. And I think there was another one, and they had like a series of meetings and so on and so forth. Now I know the person. They're not charlatans, okay? They do have good value to deliver, and also if you're not the person that they can treat, they tell you, okay? They tell you. So they're not a charlatan. So that's not about the person. But the thing I was thinking about is how the model, the product, the service, okay, um, was given a certain model, and it goes by this rule. Okay, solve a problem. Okay, what is your problem? Did you have sexual traumas? Did you have no sexual experience? Do you have like one incident that was traumatic to you? Do you have like more than one incident? So know where to put you, and then know to allocate the time, which is actually not unwise for a therapist to do. Like, there are only so many cases you can deal with, although most people had trauma, and the nature of trauma is such that it's usually hidden. So you can definitely have a person saying, "Oh well, I just like never had a sexual experience," and then you dig up and you find stuff that you need to allocate a different time and type of supervision to. So um, I was just thinking about how the product, when it is marketed by let's solve a problem, and of course we want to aspire when we have a business to have a stream of income, that is continuing. And so you buy a series of meetings, um, and those and that and but the product is a series of meetings to treat multiple like CPTSD, okay? And this is not necessarily a person problem, because the person could deliver their value, and yes, sometimes what one person will tell you in a couple of meetings will be more useful to you than years of therapy, and sometimes that's what you have to rely on. As a person, like, you've heard my story with therapy if you know my channel. So you heard the good, the bad, and the crazy. And so it, I want to generalize this, because as we go into marketing, we're actually asked to be more patient specific with what we do. And the lowest common denominator answers usually do not really apply. And another thing I ran into today actually, and this was like particularly Mercury. So this is totally that Mercury in my life working extra time. Christopher Warnock released, I think, something to do with Mercury, and he has a series, a long series of Mercury talismans, which is fascinating, and which is definitely on the manifesting list. I hope I will get this still when I'm in my Mercury year, and if not, then maybe for the seventh house. So one of the things that he discussed was um, a question about what was it? It was a question relating to Mercury, but it was also related to marketing. Oh, okay. He said, oh, somebody asked about doing talismans. I'm not going to detail what because it's like not public. Um, but somebody asked about tailored or custom made talismans, and the answer was like, okay, what the person is asking for is a very personal, tailored answer. Well, what we offer is astrological talismans. Okay, it's the elections that we have and the products that we do. It's not tailored specifically to your needs. And this leads me right back to my tiny bit of talismanic experience. And I just made myself basically a moon in Cancer together with Venus in Cancer. It's not even the applying aspect. I just wanted to still get the semi moon atmosphere and under the beams of the moon. And it targeted the eighth house and the sixth house, which are houses of labor. So I did labor, manifesting talisman, easy conception, easy labor, and so on and so forth. And I could really see how this was tailored to me. Okay, so I have the Cancer in the fifth house natally. All the eclipses stuff are targeting my fifth house, my moon, which is in my fifth house, my Venus, the ruler of my second and fourth, and I'm in a fourth house, which is ruled by Mercury, who also rules my seventh. So it's like all in all, those issues come up. My solar return is with Jupiter in Aries in the eighth house, which is also house of birth. And it's not the first talismanic thingy that I was called to do, but this one is another concrete example of how it's not something that you would probably see any reputable magician doing as a talisman. Okay, it doesn't mean that it can't serve people, and whenever I can, I do share my work, and when it's humanitarian, then it's free to use for people who understand what they're doing. Um, so that's not to be abused, it's a benefic work, and whenever I can share it, so you can work with it in energy if it fits you, and you must know astrology to do so, because unless you're very attuned energetically and you're like, I don't know what it is, but it's good for me, then I trust you. But I trust your trust in you, but I do not market that uh, because it is so tailored to a specific person. And for me, when Jupiter was in this election squaring Pluto, it was less of an issue because I'm already working with Pluto. Okay, and I have my natal Mercury is opposite Pluto now. I've separated from Mercury square Pluto now. I'm in my Pluto square, so I'm intimately working with Pluto, and everything in my house gets introduced by Pluto. Okay, it's kind of like the dogs that come into the dog lawn and they sniff each other bum holes, and Pluto is bum holes. So it's like Pluto sniffs everything's bum hole and everything sniffs Pluto's bum hole, and then we get to know each other, and then we know what transformation we need to do. That was what happened with my Gemini talisman from Sphere and Sundry. It just came into the house went to Pluto. Then it was like I put it on my plate, and then I bought me some luxurious, nourishing food, um, and then eventually I did this talisman. So in between, I was at the Dead Sea, of course, swimming and enjoying. There was a fire after I was there. I didn't see it. I just saw it on the news, and I got a couple of nudges to kind of like go out early. And I was like, "Why would we go out early? The weather is so good." Um, but that I guess maybe the fire had to do with that because later they evacuated two beaches. So yeah, well, maybe we'll go there tomorrow and see what happens. Anyway, um, back to the topic. There is some interesting, fascinating thing with products and marketing and the services that we give that people do desire and do require the more patient specific. And as I'm beginning to channel things, they're so specific. Again, I can go back to my Antares one, which was, it to me, it was scary because the moon was applying to Antares on Aldebaran. Yes, it was square in Saturn. Um, Somebody later, okay, Caitlin just dropped a post at that very election later I saw. So I'm like, okay, my election was probably not that horrid in terms of the placements of the stars. Um, uh, and funnily enough, she mentioned something that was non-PC that had to do with the color of the skin of a person. Of a person. And she's a Libra. She usually is very politically correct, but this time it was like a slip, so it was shown. But for me in Israel, the election was, I don't know what was it in the United States, but in Israel, the election was that the moon was applying to Antares in the 8th house and Jupiter was in the 12th house. And I'm like, why? As I'm doing that, okay, I was like, I'll go along, and I felt this, and I did that, and I'm like, why? Um, and then I gave a charity that mixed me in problems with the municipality because they thought that I was like it was something. There was a big misunderstanding there. That I still have like Mercury is still in its shade, so it's still gathering up. And I was like, okay, this is like the talisman. And then I lost one of my toe straighteners and one sock. And I'm like, that is not looking good. But after I began to work actually with Mercury, I met someone whom I already know who learns how to be a doula and is also doing a process that I can't talk about because, like, if I didn't get permission, it's very personal. And we were talking about labor, and she was doing both cognitive work, like being trained academically, and being very intuitive. And not only that, but the planets that I have the sun sextile moon. So for her, I think it was the sun didn't see the moon or something like that, and the planets that I had connected, she did not have connected, and so that was very useful for her. And when I noticed her, yeah, and when I noticed she literally had the moon applying to Aldebaran almost on the same degree. It's like almost to the minute. And Jupiter in Aries, pretty much where it was when I did my talisman. And I'm like, oh my God, she is the talisman. She is the reason I made this talisman. And the talisman had to do with ethically sourced wealth. And not only that, it was during the week of my birthday, so my solar return, with Jupiter in Aries in the 8th house. Okay, so plenty of birthing stories. And it was kind of, nobody would be given a Jupiter ruling, moon on applying to Aldebaran, ruling the 8th in the 12th. Like, nobody would think that's a good idea. But do remember that the 8th house is generational wealth, the 8th house is birth giving, the 8th house is where you share energies with someone, it's also depth, and so on and so forth. And the 12th house, yes, it's all those prisons, hotels, jails, but it's also a very far away land. And I was taking part in an argument that took about standardization of the astrological field in the United States, which is from where I am, faraway land. And not only that, while somebody that I'm okay with now and I really appreciate it, kind of like avoided my comment, and I was kind of feeling ostracized, but it was a representative, like a new representative that was chosen to one of the leading organizations, and I got my word in, like, right where it was supposed to go, and I got well treated. So, and it had to do with willing consent. And something of the sort also took place today, not with the ostracized part, but with having to do with willing consent, labor and labor. I will not further like talk about this because it was overwhelming for me too. But I did understand that I'm hitting it where the core of the issue is, and the core of this culture is the hustle culture, is the United States. I am in Israel, so I'm speaking to the United States. So Jupiter is in the 12th, and so I'm tackling the issue from the root, and the root is not in Israel. Israel was not even born when this culture of work that is enslaving people and is detrimental to birthing, to healthy parenting, to lunar cycle, to menstruation, to being present in the body, to nourishment. That started there. Okay, that started there. I mean, it hasn't started there, but modernly Europe is now quite different than, and the big issue is the United States. When we talk about advanced countries or countries that affect other countries, the United States is the issue. So I can understand how that was tailored to me, because I have an angular Sagittarius with the ruler in the 11th, so it's not a big issue. But when I'm trying to reach crowds that are, it's not when I'm trying, it's when I'm fated to reach crowds that are way out there, I need to have something in the 12th. I need to reach the 12th. So that was not easy to comprehend, and it was scary pretty much, because you're getting an election that you would not find sphere and sundry talismans of Jupiter in the 12th ruling, multiplying to Aldebaran in the 8th, nor will you find talismans that target the 8th and the 6th house with benefics. It's not, and therefore, if, let's say, it was a product and I had to market it to the masses using all these modules, there would be total incompatibility between the product and the marketing. Because marketing-wise, if you solve the problem of billions, and every one of these billions is capable of paying you $1, you don't have to worry about your 401k. If you get it to the people, if you get them to understand that you buy this product. But what that creates is Well, how many times in life will you be able to solve the problems of billions and elect something that applies to all of them? One could say, well, surely you are doing this right now. You just talked about labor, you just talked about the root. Well, everybody needs to so and so and so. Everybody has their own way of coming to something. Everybody has their own way of understanding a message. Um, I totally believe that there's a very good reason to as to why you believe what you believe and why you behave the way you behave. And if there is a point of interference, if it is your time to um, switch beliefs or add beliefs um, or alter actions, then you probably are already supported and there's a window of opportunity opening up for you so that you can find those remedies that are good for you. As well as even if there is one product, you know, I buy talismans. Okay, and talismans are like the specific collection. No two people work with the same talisman in the same manner. No two people do that. It will apply to you the way it needs to apply to you. So this is a true, you know, when I was doing filmmaking, um, we were studying Steven Spielberg because Steven Spielberg seemed to be able to amend a lot of the intrigues between filmmaking being an industry that means profit. Okay, investors want to see profit, usually, right? I do believe that an investment is a donation and a donation is an investment. To both my donations and my investments, I have the desire to see profit. What is profit? Okay, even if it's about seeing the person grow or seeing the person grow so much so that I can get dividends. That means I succeeded with my donation slash investment. Okay, I want to know that I'm doing the right thing. I want to know that I'm giving the best thing I could possibly give to every single person that I meet along the way. Enemies included, by the way. Enemies included. Okay. Um, and as we get to this various spheres, okay, one is creation, doing the right thing, and the other is profit, dividends. How do I sell the right thing to the right person at the right time? And how do I sell it on a grand scale? How do I scale my business while maintaining a patient-specific approach? Um, and those are big questions. I think the economy itself needs a bit rejuvenation. And that's pretty much each and every one of us tending to it in their own time, in their own way. Um, and that is that can we re-examine the incessant need to scale up businesses? That's one thing. So decentralization. And another thing is, can we honor um, liberty, freedom, patient-specific approach within our marketing for the masses? And businesses has this way to evolve that the grander the business make, the more place for opportunity there is. If my business makes a lot of money, I can do experimental stuff like my employees this experiment, that the other employees that experiment. So they can have a little, you know, tiny brand which could be a big brand that kind of pays me some dividends for providing an environment to develop their creativity, or for putting my inputs if they ask for me my consultation. I'm not quite sure how is this supposed to be, um, because essentially we're not disconnected, and also we are unique. Okay? You can train 100 employee to do, we talk about magic, okay? You can train 100 employee to do mercury buttercreams. No, see, if you give them the permission to be, no single cream will taste exactly like the other, will have exactly the flavor of the other, not energetically and not physically. Okay? And that's the variations on the canon. Um, so some of that is easy to accommodate, some, and it just doesn't seem like it. Um, but some of it is, seeing those weird marketing stuff like, did you have one trauma? Did you have multiple traumas? Well, you can buy these 10 meetings and let's call each other and see if we're compatible. And how incompatible the module of marketing to the issue at hand, which is somebody's complex trauma, difficulty being in the body, dissociation, whatnot, handling over at, a X meetings schedule. But on the other hand, you don't want the person who gives service to be in a situation where they can't really offer good service because they don't make enough money. And then how can they listen to you if they're not well fed? So this is a bit of a, it looks like a 22 catch, which I'm sure can be, I'm sure can be like intervened and sent to a different loop, sent to a different direction. I'm actually good at doing that. Especially if I think about what my skill is, it's the second house is Mercury in Aries, um, opposing Pluto and Scorpio. So that is very much like that insight that gets people out of that crazy loop. It's that step. What is that step? What? And it's sometimes at times. That's why I like chaotic systems. Okay, non-linear systems. Like, where can I intervene that sets this into motion? And to people, on an intimate level, I might be incredibly triggering, and I still need to learn how to do this without triggering. I triggered my psychologist's trauma from, I don't even know how. But then he became violent to me, like aggressive and violent. Like we were having sex astrally, and it was okay. What happened to you? So surely there was something that stirred up something, but that exploded on me. So not benefic. But when it comes to interfering in a system that is, I wouldn't say stagnant, but that's something that in various cases I'm very likely to be able to do when that is triggered in me, and actually create motion in the place where there was stagnation. So this is my marketing missings, and this is where my Chiron is Mercury ruled. So anything to do with communication, and I wrote about it, I think on Twitter. I can speak all day or speak nonstop, and then there are certain conversations that I just can't do without any particular reason. It's just that one thing triggers another thing, and the various web, it's like I'm already predicting the various web of reactions that I can have where I don't want to expose certain trauma to certain people. So I just don't, like, until I don't find the way out of this loop myself. Okay, but for when other people are in a loop, I'm quite capable of snapping them out of it, depending on the cases. Um, and then this marketing thing where I've had pretty good successes at marketing, even of my own products. But when I see these things that are like these incompatibilities, and I kind of think of, okay, how to yes, then I'm more inviting solutions, because there is this stagnant energy, there is this something that is stuck there, and that plays on the issue of consent, of willing consent, labor, willing consent, work, willing consent, all of that plays on that, and being authentic and real to myself. Okay, this Leo sixth house classic. I need to shine. My service to the world. I need to shine. I need to be appreciated. Sun in the third house on a daily basis. Um, so that's what's coming up. Um, we see this marketing thing also plays out in the medicines where you have evidence-based medicine that gives you an ANOVA model, which is a sort of statistical analysis for various cases, and it looks very reasonable. You have randomized, double-blind, randomized control tests, where it's two groups of people that double blind. It's like double blind means that, let's say one person is given a certain pill and the other is given a sugar pill, then both the people who give those pills and the subjects do not know what they're getting. That is how it's double blind. So this is when you hear double blind randomized control test. But this sounds so very articulate, but it's so very bogus, because no patient takes one pill, and things tend to work differently in an atmosphere than they tend to work alone. Okay, if I give you orange essential oil to smell, and I give you orange and jasmine essential oil to smell, those are two different combinations. And the orange is going to play out differently in both of them, let alone that you will experience it differently, and so on and so forth. So and when it comes to certain medication, for it to be profitable to produce, you need to market it to the masses. Now, what happened when this medication kills several people? You're not supposed to, but believe me, you get it, on beta blockers and so on and so forth. But that's just one example. Right? There's some other more recent examples that has already become a cliche to talk about, but still people are not updated with this information. And my heart goes to not only the people who have been hurt, but the MDs who believed in these things and forced people to take that, and kind of in a messiah way, preach for people to protect themselves and take this medication thingy, and the implications are like, my heart goes to them, and they figure out what were they involved in. But this is a part of those discrepancies between needing to have a steady income, a predictable steady income, and for it to be profitable for you to produce something, and the fact that it is not in every case that you do find a practical solution that kind of fits the lowest common denominator. Even if you want to say, if let's say you want to give food to the homeless, you say, but they will eat everything. When I was in between houses, then for several, there were times where I was stealing food, and then you meet other homeless people, and I met one lady, and I wanted to give her cheese. It was good Gouda cheese. Actually, in Israel, it happened. And she says, "Oh, I don't eat cheese. I don't like that." I said, "Okay." I tried to see if there is something that I have to give her, and I didn't have to give her. Here I had this cheese, I had some other products, and she found none of them useful. And I was actually wondering, like appreciating how she could tell me, okay, this is something that I like, this is something that I don't like, or this is something that I eat, this is something that I don't eat. Even though she wanted food, okay, and that's something that I've learned from. Like, that's so good, you know. She was not being picky. She was being true to what nourishes her, and this is something that I really appreciate. So even if you want to give, or I was in a shelter in Netherlands, and you think, okay, you give food to people, and one day there was no halal food. Okay, people who eat kosher, I don't know what they do. Okay, I used to go to Shabbat dinners at the Chabad because I just wanted to absorb some iron, because iron is absorbed when you eat meat, but you don't eat milk. And I love eating meat and milk. I don't keep any particular dietetic regime, but I just wanted to absorb iron. So I said, okay, I'll eat Shabbat dinner at the Bet Chabad. They have some separate dishes. But one day there was no halal. And so for one Muslim lady, she was an old lady, homeless, she came to the shelter and there was no halal. And she started crying. Because she was so hungry and she could not eat. So I don't know, like, Muslim law, Sharia law, but I can imagine that even if it would be not prohibited for her to eat this because this is survival, and I know in Judaism we have some rules, but in probably in other religions too. But I can understand what it's like for a person to even consider this with themselves. So you think, oh, let's feed the homeless. Well, every person has their own diet. Some people can't eat that, some people are allergic to that, and so on and so forth. And so even when you say, oh, this is so simple, we just need to give food to people, yes, it is very simple. It is as simple as that. And you have to make sure you have the nourishing food that everybody can eat, and they don't have to compromise their health because they're homeless. Rather, during this time they actually need an even more nourishing food because absorption of vitamins and minerals is challenged when you're stressed, right? So this is like, even when you want to do philanthropic humanitarian thing, there is no one size fit all. It doesn't exist. For one person, it's housing first. Okay. For another person, they actually want you to keep the street safe because sometimes they need to get out of the house, sometimes in the night, and have a night walk. And it's very important for their health because they can't sleep at night and so on and so forth. They get out and they have a night walk, and they really have to do it and have to live in a region where you can do it. Um, or some people will prefer um, that, I don't know, that some people want to get a job, and some people would need a vacation actually because they never took a vacation, or they need a vacation because if they go to work they will make everyone crazy, they will mass shoot everyone, or they will kill themselves, will explode, like suicide bombers, because it's too much abandonment from society. So no one size fit all. And and then what would happen is that people will try to force the model on the service and product that they're selling. And that, I think, it happens also in research when people try to force the theory that they have on the data, and it looks nasty. Um, or they arrange the data in a way that, with statistics you can do pretty much everything in that context. And I know personally people who did statistics, and they had this joke about, well, what does the data say? It's like, what, and the statistics, the person who does the statistic computation say, well, what do you want it to say? And I know this from first, like, very, very intimately, okay? So this is a part of research, this is a part of marketing, and um, and that's a question of how do you still do the right thing in the right time with the right people within those enigmas. So I don't have an answer, but I am inviting you to ponder And I hope that I have given, there's this nice, okay, I read this when I did my Mercury invocation. So there's this nice line. It was written by Sarah Mastros, Orphic Hymn Grimoire. And she is addressing Hermes as mathematician, magician, traveler, and thief. And she's saying, um, where is this line? Make the pious man doubt, bring the skeptic belief, bring justice in the market and luck for the gambler, bring guidance to the lost and inspiration to the rambler, make our words be clever, let our minds be bright, grant unearned luck and true wisdom's insight. Let our tongues be quick and our feet quick too. Let our lies be convincing and our teaching be true. So this is a part, this is a segment of her hymn to Hermes that I'd like to end with. And it's not the whole section, so you can find her on Orphic Hymns Grimoire, Sarah Mastros. And that is probably the aim of this video. Okay, so for the people who are too certain in a certain medication that they're given, in a certain products, or in a certain way that they were told to market their own products and their own businesses, because this is the model and this works for everyone. So what if, consultation to people with complex sexual trauma from childhood that multiple times have trauma? Okay, this is the model. So have a little healthy doubt, but also in a way, while raising this, then you can understand that there are people who are actually taking the time to consider, taking the time to think about this, even publicly, and and to tend to that yourself. So to find a way and to find a belief. Okay, and I gave again the example of Christopher Warnock, who said, well, I'm sorry, you are asking to do something that is tailored to you, and what we do is something that is more general. Yeah, this is what we offer. We have these Mercury talismans. It was addressing Mercury. And that is so much, and it's from him that I got the Mercury is trustworthy, which is, it has revolutionized the way that I see Mercury to begin with. Which is good because it rules my seventh and fourth, huh? And as much as this is Moon supposed to be here, this is also the honoring of those mercurial ponderings. And Mercury is in the 8th degree of Taurus, so still the first phase is Venusian, Venus in Cancer. And I believe that we all can address this and can invite answers to come and see and pick all kinds of answers to things. There's a lot of intricacy to this topic because it deals with your medicine as well as your therapy as well as your food. Okay. As well as the choices we make in life. And with that, I'll end. So thank you very much for watching this little timeless teaching, and I'll be seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye. You can subscribe, of course, share with people if you like them, and yeah,